Anarchy being an absence of rulers, not an absence of rules, just an absence of rulers. Yeah, I think I took care of that there, guys. I don't. Something's going on with the mixer and this and the feed. It's a real pain in the neck. So I apologize for that. So that was a tech issue that was on me, but I can't figure out what. Yeah. Oh, what's? Yeah, Ian. Oh, all right. I bumped it up, I guess, because it wasn't looking too good on my end as far as how is that? Oh, how's that? Something's going on, so I don't know what the deal is because I'm looking at Audacity and I should be clipping, but if it's not going out loud enough on the air. Yep. Yeah, welcome back. Hopefully, we've got everything going fine now. Starting the show off with several tech issues, but hey, that's the No Stay Project. Kind of used to that by now. So hopefully the podcast is going well. I'll have to probably work on that. Anyway, if you want to join me here on the big show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode, of course, is 2020 with the pound sign. It's unfortunately not a toll-free call. You can also ask me questions on the YouTube chat. And then also on Skype, I will sign into Skype. Don't call me directly on Skype. We'll connect you during a break, but that is Frank Rizzo 3. That's the number 3, Frank Rizzo 3. And we'll get you on that way. Again, don't call directly from Skype to Frank Rizzo. Instant message me first, and then we'll get you on. We've already had a number of issues here so far today. So let's not have that be another issue there. So, all right. I gave that out. A couple things I want to get to, then we're going to get to the calls. We got looks like already we've got a Frank Rizzo connection. So hold on, just be patient. I got a couple things because if I don't get this, that's why I usually use the first segment. So if I don't get it, I'm going to run out of time. I'm not going to be able to get to it. There was somebody sent me a response that a prosecutor had filed in response, of course, to the motion to dismiss that's available at markstevens.net. And I wanted to discuss that for a little bit, something that you because first, it's extremely rare. It's maybe 1 in 20 times that the motion to dismiss is filed that there's actually a response from a prosecutor. So getting a written response is very, very, very rare. And so I usually do videos on this. I haven't had the time to do that. I want to address one of the things here now. Because it's a reoccurring kind of theme, and not and a lot of people don't know. Well, what do I do? How do I respond to that? So what the issue here is? Remember, the motion to dismiss is raising an issue of fact that the prosecution's claims and opinions don't have sufficient or any facts to support them. Okay, that's an issue of fact. That's where the evidence is not sufficient, or it's just not there at all to meet even a prima facie burden, so that there is no presumption of correctness that is created that then requires you to rebut with evidence. And what the prosecutor will do, instead of actually addressing that, will raise a straw man, which of course is just a fancy way of saying that he's going to address an argument that you didn't even raise. And so instead of addressing directly the claim that the Constitution and laws apply to you because you may be physically in Arizona, instead of addressing that claim, because there is no actual evidence. So the only way that they can directly address that is to argue we don't need evidence. And it has its own problems, of course, because arguing without evidence is prosecutorial misconduct. It's also a serious ethical violation to argue without evidence. And for the judge to allow that is a violation of due process. It's not fair. And then, of course, they like to treat this as a sacred cow, that it's irrefutable, and irrefutable presumptions violate due process. Why? Because you can't defend against it, and due process requires a notice and opportunity to defend. And if the judge is taking a claim from the prosecution as irrefutably true that you cannot defend against, you don't have notice and opportunity to defend. That's a basic due process violation. It's not fair. When they take the claim as irrefutable, that is a big abafangul. Okay, fangul. That is what they're actually doing to you. Abafangul, right? So here, what the prosecutor did, instead of trying to make an excuse that they're not required to support their argument, they just drive around it. They just create another argument as if you were making that. And that argument here was that they have the statutory authority to prosecute these, to prosecute these complaints. So that's what, so I guess it's bewildering to people, because the argument on its own is probably true, but it doesn't address your argument, which is they are lacking evidence. That it's an issue of fact. Our argument is an issue of fact, and they just ignore that completely. So, the prosecutor's office has the statutory authority to prosecute these cases. Okay, what the hell does that have to do with the argument that was actually raised? It's got nothing. Nothing. They got nothing. Just a lot of talking up edge. So, what I would do is just point out, this is not an argument that was raised. The prosecutor is responding to another defendant. They're responding to somebody else's paperwork. This is the problem with using copy and paste responses. Now, the U.S. attorney is absolutely notorious for doing this in tax cases. They just they just use the exact same thing. I mean, I reported about the Franchise Tax Board doing that not that a couple months ago. Of course, the agent denied it, but you can lie about it, but I have the documents to prove it. In fact, the Franchise Tax Board has been using the same template for over 12 years. Since yeah, Tom, that it's, if I'm saying in Sicilian, then it's okay, because 99% of the people don't even know what the hell I'm saying. So yes, I'm actually going to allow that. Yes. Yes. Is that a bias? Yes. But it's because most people don't know what the hell that means. All right. I could say Bono Notizi. No, who the hell knows? Bono Notizi. Somebody tell me what the hell that means. I will be shocked. And I think my pronunciation is pretty good on that. But if somebody knows what that means, definitely put it in. put it in the chat, because if someone does that, they're getting a free book. They just or I'll send them the paperwork gratis, because they deserve it if they know what that means. So anyway, to get back, break. We'll be back here on the No State Project with your calls, and I'll finish up in the next segment regarding strawman attacks from the strawman arguments from the prosecution. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, and streaming live from my YouTube channel, No State Project. If you're not subbed, get subbed today so that you'll know when we are going live, where hopefully, at least after in January, we can start doing more live shows. And if you want to join me, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And Tom, I'm using a Behringer. I think it's actually pretty nice. It's pretty good. I think I may have figured out what was going on with the mixer. So anyway, what I was saying before the break was when we get these very rare responses from prosecutors, you have to, in order to respond appropriately, and effectively, you have to first understand the motion to dismiss is primarily based on a lack of evidence. So you have to, know and understand the difference between an issue of law and an issue of fact. And then you have to know, is the prosecution's argument addressing a particular argument from my motion? So here, if they're saying that they have the statutory authority to do X, Y, Z, that has nothing to do with the motion to dismiss, which is based on lack of evidence proving jurisdiction and a cause of action, corpus delicti and things like that. So it's not responsive. So there knowing it's not responsive, you can now better address that. Look, this is not an argument that the prosecutor is probably copying and pasting an argument from another case. It has no application here whatsoever, and he should be sanctioned for raising an argument that's got nothing to do with the litigation at hand. So it's the same as if they try to argue that they're not required to have evidence to support their argument. Like I've already previously mentioned, that's pretty bad, because you have a Rule 3.1 violation, which states that their arguments have to be based on fact and law. And just saying that you violated the law, it's got to have some evidence. It's got to have evidence, even if it's just a little bit at this stage, at the pleading stage, just sufficient that the bare number of facts that, if true, would entitle the plaintiff to relief and prove that, if taken as true, would show that there was wrongdoing. So, okay. I will do what I can to get a video addressing another prosecutor's response. But if you go back into the archives, there are videos, some even a half hour long, where I am addressing the points made by the prosecutor and showing whether they have no merit because they're just wrong as to their argument, or they're raising a straw man where it's got nothing to do with what's in the motion to dismiss. It's just like when they say, well, the argument that you're not a taxpayer within meaning a statute is frivolous. Yeah, that very well might be true. Not an argument that I raised, though. So actually address the argument that is raised. If the prosecution, if you disagree that with my argument, my position that you lack evidence to support your claim, present the evidence. So what the prosecutor up in Wisconsin wasn't able to do a few years ago was not able to present evidence to overcome the motion, nor, as the judge wrote in the dismissal, the prosecution didn't show where he was not required to have such evidence. So you either have the evidence or show where you're not required to. And they didn't do either one. So look and make sure. The biggest thing here is make sure that the prosecution is actually addressing an argument from the motion to dismiss. Okay. So this is going to probably take a while. Joe was on the big show on Wednesday. A lot of stuff going on here. If you look at the video for that show, I did pull down the live stream, but I was able to actually get some articles, and I was able to get a screen cap of a video with Joe in there, so we can kind of put a face to a name. But it's been a few days, but welcome back to the show, Joe in Philly.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I posted some stuff and allowed you access to trial paperwork 14680. I don't know if you had a chance to review the paperwork I filed just recently in Philadelphia court against the judge that assumes that she's Hail Caesar and she's judge, jury, and prosecution, and that she has not allowed the due process to occur where the co-defendants are allowed their constitutional rights to address the complaint.
Okay, well, I have not been able to. It's been a busy week, so I have not been able to get to that. Plus, there's working with somebody who's called in the show, and their significant other is in jail, and so we're working on trying to help get them out. So, just from the last show that I remember, you have a judge that within one day of you filing your complaint against the county and 65 people, within a day, you got a ruling back that it was frivolous. And so just help me out here. Remember, when the order the next day, did it dismiss your complaint?
It marked it closed because it's frivolous.
They dismissed it. They marked it closed, so they dismissed it. So they dismissed it with prejudice. Were those two words used?
No, there was no addressing it as to whether it was dismissed with prejudice. I went to the clerk's office to file additional paperwork, and I was told this matter has been closed. Then I immediately, if you've ever been to Philadelphia, went upstairs to the magistrate's office and addressed that with a person that was in the magistrate's office who was alarmed to be notified that the matter was closed and declared that she was probably unaware that the matter was closed. And then I went back down to the clerk's office. I'm the ping pong ball when they're playing ping pong with me. That yes, the magistrate is the only one that has the authority to close the matter, and that they were following orders, which is why I usually call the Nuremberg defense.
Okay.
I don't have to follow morals. I don't have to follow the law. I'm listening to my boss, no matter how big a criminal they may or may not be.
For some reason, we're not getting any of the audio from Joe. Joe.
Okay.
All right, say something.
Can you hear me now?
Keep going.
Can you hear me now?
Just
okay.
Keep talking.
What I said was are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you, but nothing is coming out on my recording. I don't know if it's coming out on the air. Well, we're up against the break, so I'm going to have to try to figure this out. So just hold on. You're going out on the stream, but it's not being picked up at all.
Okay.
All right. So just hold tight. I got you muted up. We'll be back here on the No Stay Project in just a few moments. You want to join the show later? It's 218-632-9399, and the passcode is 2020 with the #. We'll be back with Joe in Philly in just a few minutes, so don't go away. For those listening watching on YouTube, we're on a live radio show, so we're going to be on break for a few minutes. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and the Liberty Radio Network. Streaming live on my YouTube channel, No State Project. And we're going to get back to Joe in Philly, see if maybe we can get past this little tech issue. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for everything you do.
Well, you're welcome.
I don't know. Did what I say before get out on the air about the Nuremberg defense, and it would be apropos to what you're saying about the prosecutors, in that everybody's just going on the presumption that some mystical boss is telling them to do stuff that's illegal, and that thus makes it illegal. But nobody names the boss, and nobody actually follows the law.
Well, here there actually is a boss, because whichever judge was assigned to this is the boss of whether the case is closed or not, as you mentioned. And so if you file a complaint, if the magistrate is going to be throwing it out and closing it, there has to be an order from the judge that the clerks are following. The clerks don't get to make a decision that a case is closed. It has to come from the judge. The judge is the supreme being there. So have you been able to see the docket to see if there is an order from the judge saying that this is dismissed?
There is an order that the matter is closed with no reasoning other than frivolous.
Okay, but the judge did do that.
She doesn't give any definition about what about the filing is frivolous. It's just a general adjective commentary with no facts behind it.
And you're able to show that this judge that was assigned to it, that there is a direct conflict of interest?
Well, there's a direct conflict of interest with that whole level of court, in that Brenda Frazier, who was a previous judge with that court, was the one that actually was involved in day-to-day with Logan Assistance, which was the original settlement agreements that were signed with the homeowners in that area. And that Skipper Woods, another judge that was the chief judge of that court until about a month or two ago, she 3 years ago was involved with city council woman, one of the chief city council women, about questions about whether the deeds were transferred in mine and other properties legally, because there was a question as to the notaries and everything else. But like we said on Wednesday, 42 USC requires, if you know that a violation of 42 USC 1982 has occurred and you fail to perform everything in your power to correct this, then you are guilty of a crime at the federal level. And, you know, I'm not judge, jury, and prosecutioner, because I don't want to be accused of what I'm accusing them of. There was nothing done once that was noted, and the matter seemed to, like, nobody wanted to touch it. It was a hot potato. So now we're at the third judge in that level that is now closing matters before due process requires co-defendants to issue documents as to the validity of the accusations. And they aren't allowed to submit forms to the court because the matter got closed right away.
You didn't even get that
before
they
they
not
were
even have served them. I know that you mentioned that it was going to cost something like a few thousand. It was $3,500 or $3,000 to serve all 65 people. Did you have?
No, that wasn't the service. That was the copies of the papers to be served.
That didn't even include the service?
That didn't even include the service. Now, if you want, I can forward the document to you, but the document's got 100 hundreds of pages because my filing style is that I individually note on single sentences every little accusation I have. And there's like 40 accusations per actor on the lawsuit, among, you violated this law, you violated that law, you violated this law. I'm trying to state a lot of accusations that are proving that their actions were in violation of so many laws. So therefore, what precipitated their action, almost like you like to declare with the traffic stop. What was going on in the police officer's head before he decided to pull you over to do the search of your license and registration? And I'm trying to establish that in documents that even though I met with the governor in person and he assured me he would look into it, he has not looked into it. In fact, he hired as general counsel for the governor one of the board directors from the agency that stole my property. He gave her a promotion as soon as he got elected. And therefore, all my documents to the governor get directed to her, which any elementary school student could understand as a conflict of interest because she was also listed as a co-defendant on the lawsuit.
Well, we're trying to establish whether there was a conflict of interest with the current sitting judge that should have been addressed or not. And it's very murky as to, and I'm not convinced that you've been able to show that there was. But so this was tossed out before you even got a chance to serve anybody?
That's correct.
Wow.
And I've issued a couple paperworks to filings to the clerk's office, and having talked it over with the clerk and discussed some things. Originally, I think I don't want to give them an out. Originally, there was a big row in the clerk's office to collect fees before they would accept the filing. And the fees would have been somewhere around $900. And then I quoted the PA Constitution, Article 1, Section 11. I think it's without fail, without denial, without delay, if you're suing the Commonwealth and their officers. So then they reluctantly took the paperwork after a lot of jibber jabber for a couple hours. And then immediately I get the matter handed back to me as closed because it's frivolous. So it might be an economic problem, but again, the Constitution says economics can't stop you from filing.
Okay, but what in the world was the $900 charge? I've not filed in a Pennsylvania court. I'm pretty certain that that's not the filing fee on for filing a tort action in Philadelphia. What was the $900 charge?
Well, they had all sorts of things. And in fact, when I filed the Mandamus quo warranto, they have a fee for Mandamus quo warranto. I don't know if I have the fee sheet with me right now, but I have the fee sheet at home.
Wait, okay.
They have like a fee sheet for every type of paperwork that you want to file.
Yeah, you were doing
and it's so much a page, and it's so much per page, and it's ridiculous.
What in the world were you filing? All right, the question we'll come back to when we're trying to make sense of this.
Okay.
So I'm going to put you on hold. But what we're going to come back to is what in the world were you filing a mandamus and quo warranto for in this? And so that's what we'll address when we get back. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and streaming live on my YouTube channel. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Joe in Philadelphia. Well, welcome back. I did it again. Probably better off. Anyway, we're probably going to be stuck with just this live stream. It will be a nightmare to edit this. Even if I can download it off of, or maybe I can. All right, I'll work that out after the show. I'll probably skip the break, like James was suggesting, so we can cover more ground with Joe, because this is just a damn mess. There's just too many moving parts to this, and I can't dedicate the entire show to just the one call. This is a god awful mess. All right, so answer that. You were filing not only a tort complaint against these people, but you filed a mandamus, a petition for writ of mandamus.
Mandamus quo warranto is what I filed the other day, Thursday.
Okay.
Because I want her to establish how a magistrate can deny due process. How a magistrate, and I also listed laws that are part of the case. They're from Black Laws 4th edition that describe. Well, let me read what the definition of a mandamus.
Well, I know I know what a mandamus is, which is exactly why I'm so puzzled as to why you would file a petition for writ of mandamus, because a petition for writ of mandamus or a writ of mandamus is an order from a higher court to a lower court, ordering the judge to perform a mandatory function of the job. Now,
well, it also establishes where she has the authority, and clearly if you're filing a common law matter, the tribunal is in charge, and the tribunal is described in the law of the case as the sovereign, which is me, or a jury of my peers, and that is why I wanted a trial by jury, which puts the jury in place almost from the beginning, so they can rule on all matters of law and then restrict.
No, that I don't know where you're getting that from. The jury only rules on matters once it's a trial. So after you do all the pretrial stuff, you get all that done, then a jury is impaneled the day of the trial, and they only make decisions on matters that are presented at the actual trial. They do not make pre-trial decisions. That is within the realm
correct.
of the judge.
They do not make pre-trial decisions. That is correct.
Okay, so I'm
trying to instruct or corner the magistrate as far as according to law that I have researched, that her function or his function, well, to her in this case, is to just, conduct the trial, which means allow, the plaintiff and the defendants to interact.
Okay, but Joe, the thing is, what particular mandatory function of the judicial office are you asking the higher court? Doesn't even sound like you went to the higher court. It sounds like you're dealing with the same court, but we'll deal with that in a second. What particular mandatory function of the judge's job are you asking the court to order them to do?
To conduct the trial.
But
not to close
whether
the
there's
trial.
Going to be a trial, whether there's going to be a trial is not, and having a trial is not a mandatory function of the job. There may not be sufficient evidence to warrant a trial. There may be no factual disputes, and it could be disposed of with a summary judgment because there are just issues of law. So on that, you can't maintain a mandamus. So which court did you file this in? Did you file it into the court that would hear an appeal from the trial court?
No, I filed it into her court because I want her to explain herself why the matter was closed instantly, and no filings can be accepted into her court.
A mandamus,
and I was also in.
A mandamus has to go to a court that would hear an appeal from the trial court. It's a higher court to a lower court, or it's for a court to to another government agency that, let's say a police agency or something like zoning where they have to perform a mandatory function. So I think you wasted your money completely on this petition for a mandamus. And how did you? And the thing is, if it was, if she denied your motion or your petition and closed it within 24 hours of you filing it, when did you go in and file the mandamus?
I filed it last Thursday. Like I said, the court clerks, and again, I cannot speak to what is in their mind, but I got the impression because they were not collecting fees, which is some people's complaint about traffic tickets, that it's a income generating mechanism, is not about law. I would say the same thing about my particular situation. It seems like they want to collect fees for filing paperwork, and they want to close the thing willy-nilly. Now, when I present them with the Constitution that they cannot collect fees, then they want to close it immediately.
But the clerks
because
are not the ones
they see it as a...
But the judge is the one that closed it. So I'm sorry, I think you completely wasted money with this mandamus quo warranto thing, because my understanding is they're two separate petitions. Did you file any other thing in together with this? Was there another petition? Because to have a $900 bill of filing fees leads me, unless you're in Minnesota,
rate of error.
3 petitions.
Well, I didn't pay the $900 filing fees. I was instructed that's what it would cost. I filed them without paying. I filed a writ of error based on her closing the matter. I also filed a first judicial notice, which added additional case law and law that would prove that her actions are unjustified, in my opinion.
This is you're throwing things at them, pretty fast and furious. And did you file a petition for a writ of error, or did you file a document that you just called a writ of error?
A writ of error.
You don't get to do that. The only ones who can do a writ of error are judges, appellate judges. This is something that I remember 20 years ago people doing. And they said, well, I filed my petition, I filed my writ of error, and they didn't even hear it. I'm like, that's because only judges can issue writs of error. You have to file, just like with the mandamus, you have to file a petition so that, because you're asking the judge to issue the writ, just like a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. You can't just file a writ of habeas corpus. Only judges can do a writ of habeas corpus. So you're asking the judge to grant a motion, grant your petition to issue a writ against the trial court judge. So the petition, so your writ of error is that I agree. Just throw that in the garbage, because it's a waste of paper. The first judicial notice, for doing a judicial notice, one, you have to have an active case. 2, I know in California you can ask for judicial notice of court rulings. Is that the way it is in Pennsylvania, that you can ask for a judicial notice of court rulings on judicial notice?
Correct.
I'm going to need a citation for that, because I've never seen anywhere other than California that allows that. So that's something I would have to look up. I'll have to look. In fact, I'm going to blow through the break, and because I've got a whole line of whole line of calls that we still, and we only have 2 hours left. So this is something I'm going to have to look up. But suffice for now, say that judicial notice. All right, all right. So this way it doesn't come out over the feed, over the YouTube stream. I'm pretty certain Rule 201 is the same as at the federal level. They adopted the federal rules. This rule governs judicial notice of an adjudicated fact only, not a legislative fact. Kinds of facts that may be judicially noticed. I'm not seeing anything here in Rule 201 like they have in California that allows a court to take judicial notice of court rulings. Kind of facts that may be judicially noticed. The court may judicially notice a fact that is not subject to reasonable dispute because it is generally known within the trial court's territorial jurisdiction, or can be accurately and readily determined from sources whose accuracy cannot reasonably be questioned. So unless you have another citation other than Rule 201, I don't see where you can legitimately ask a court to take judicial notice of a court ruling, or even the law. It looks like it functions just like at the federal level and everywhere other than California, where it's for adjudicated facts only. So I see this all the time, which is really unfortunate because it's a waste of people's time. You don't even have an active case. So which judge are you filing this with? Are you filing it with the judge that closed the case?
Hello?
Yeah, you can't hear me?
No, I can barely not hear you. I hear some squeaking going on in the background.
Good Lord,
Went dim like we went to a commercial thing, so I'm barely hearing you.
Okay, all right, we're gonna have to come back.
Now I can hear you a little bit better. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I have to have the feedback on. We'll be back here in just a few minutes. Apparently something.
Now I have a commercial on in the background.
Yeah,
I hear the commercial before I hear you.
We'll be back in a few minutes, so don't worry about it. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project, second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio here on the Liberty Radio Network and streaming live on my YouTube channel. We'll see what this segment brings us. So we say anarchy is a literal translation from the Greek, meaning no rulers, not no rules. So the idea that it's okay to lie, steal, kill, and cheat people just because you call yourself a government, we reject that. You see something like this week, how the law and order president, his attorney, Rudy Giuliani, wasn't a big crime. Yes, have a few ounces of marijuana, you can spend a significant amount of time in jail. Commit a felony at the federal level. It's not a big. Yeah. Two sets of rules, people. All right, we're going to try to get through this. All right. Joe in Philly, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I think.
Like I said, I wanted to get to more of the big picture thing, like you were saying the other day about it seems like they're all filing the same documents, and maybe there is some, even though it sounds like a conspiracy, there's some kind of we won't follow the law school that all these counselors are going to, and their general disregard of the facts and trying to make some kind of legal argument that they don't have to follow the law.
Well, sure.
Like in my case,
it depends on, I think, on who you're arguing against. I think here you've given them a lot of, there's a lot that they would be able to look at to show that your filings just aren't very good. The writ of error, no, that's just bad. The Mandamus, bad. The requesting judicial notice the way you did at this time, pretty bad. For those who are just tuning in, unlike California, you only get to ask for judicial notice of adjudicative facts, not issues of law. So I think the only remedy that would be available here right now would be to file to reconsider the closing of the case, that it's actually frivolous. So let me ask you this. When you talk about these accusations, and I know you said that this is a huge filing, for each accusation, do you have supporting facts in your statement of fact for each accusation?
Yes.
And if those facts are accepted as true, so let's say they filed a motion to dismiss. If those facts are, so let's just say for charge 1, okay, if your supporting facts are presumed to be true for the purpose of a motion to dismiss, would that entitle you to relief in the damages that you're requesting?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if you looked at my speeches that I delivered, my testimony to counsel, because you're testifying at the public comment section. I quote several laws in the Constitution and the state of Pennsylvania as to what the laws are clear as to what expenses are to be reimbursed and the procedure to pay, which has not been followed because they haven't paid me a dime and the deed is transferred.
All right. Now, are you the only one, or are there others in the same boat as you?
I don't know whether you're familiar with the Logan Triangle. I submitted some paperwork to you that was noted in the New York Times that they acquired more property, then they shrunk the area down to a smaller area to construct on, and they resold some of the property through HUD, and that was noted in the article, and that's where I got involved. I was unaware that they were selling property that they weren't allowed to sell. They had already acquired it by eminent domain. And most of the people held PHA or FHA mortgages. So therefore, the government cannot foreclose upon itself or make itself eat a mortgage because they decided to take the property back after they already shouldn't have sold it in the first place.
Okay. All right. But my point
So
was, I'm trying
those
to get
people were offered other HUD housing.
Okay.
I am one of the few people that had a conventional mortgage, and they gave me a booklet from HUD to outline the procedures and stuff that the government has to follow and the payments that the government has to make to you.
Okay. So so taking you at your word that you know you've done all. I know you've got a bunch of YouTube videos and we're friends now on Facebook, so I can see more of the documents. The only other, because before filing an appeal, which would suck, you can file a motion to reconsider that the judge is saying that this is frivolous, and you can lay out some of your basic facts, make it only a few pages long, and show that just on one or two of the accusations that they're fully supported by facts, that it's not up for the judge to decide whether, at this point, that you should be allowed to at least serve the defendants and have them respond if they believe that those facts are not, because the judge has to presume that the facts are true for the purposes of a motion to dismiss, let's say. I could see if you had no supporting facts, then but
I already, well, the other thing is that I don't know whether you heard me the last time. I realize I'm throwing a lot of information in your direction. I filed approximately 5,000 pages in federal court with documents from the federal government that illustrate the procedure to pay the people in my particular area, because even Congress addressed the way it was being done was not being done legally. And none of the facts that I assessed at the federal level has ever been disputed. That's a couple years old now. So therefore, not only do I have paperwork that proves that, and laws that prove that, and constitutional amendments that prove that there is a set procedure in place, and there is no fact that can be disputed that they followed that. They haven't followed it. There's other filings that I am regurgitating to the court that have not been disputed in a couple of years, so they've lost their time period to dispute them as facts.
Okay, but
there are so many facts in this case, I believe, that is being done to suppress the law, in my opinion.
Well, okay,
I mean, clearly it's not being done due to a lack of paperwork. It's being done because they know they're caught and they refuse that they do. But that's my opinion.
Well, if anything, you could also file a claim against the county's insurance, and you could bring it that way. But for now, I would look up the county's risk management and maybe file a claim with their
Philadelphia is self-insured, sir.
Yeah, so you go to risk management and you file a claim against their self-insurance.
I filed that about 4 years ago, and they admitted there's a problem, but they refused to touch it.
They refused. Well,
every time I admit something, it's almost like it's radioactive. They can't dispute the facts in the case, so it sits on somebody's desk. I have the state attorney general has several complaints, which I can get you copies of, and I've emailed you some paperwork. I can email you more. The attorney general represented the Commonwealth in the case, and is well aware of the facts and refuses to do anything.
We're up against the break, and I can't blow through breaks today for some reason, but we'll finish in the next segment, and then we'll get to our other callers. We have Tom, who's been on the show, Tom from the Big D, and we got a bunch of callers in California. So just hold tight. We got about 3 minutes. We'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. If you got an issue, hit me up on the YouTube chat or Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3. Welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. And streaming live from my YouTube channel, which is No State Project, so it's easy to find. We're going to have to wrap things up here with Joe in Philly. So welcome back there, Joe. I think what I would focus on here is, the two things. I would file to reconsider the dismissal as frivolous. And
Well, I did file something to that effect, but it didn't say notice to reconsider. What it does is it states that, and a copy of that is available on the trial paperwork of 14680 on Facebook.
What did you file?
It says, as directed by federal court magistrate's lawyer, motions from the co-defendant and great reimbursable expense, I am asking her to clarify her decision to close. And then I am demanding that she reopen it because there is no basis of law. But there was a time deadline on that, and the time deadline passed without communication from her.
You got to file a motion to reconsider. You may be stuck having to appeal that. And so that I'll have to address off air with you. So let me know this. When did you get a formal denial of your claim against the insurance, the self-insurance?
No, I got nothing. The same way I got nothing from the numerous complaints I filed with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
Now, mind you, the Attorney General represented the Commonwealth at the federal level, and the Attorney General at the federal level pled that the state had not had sufficient time to rectify this situation, and that is another pleading that the federal considered to boot it back to state, to require me to file in Philadelphia first, and then if I have a problem, then to appeal it to the federal level.
Yeah, exhaust your state remedies. Okay, so how long ago did you file the claim against the insurance?
Filed the claim 2013.
Jeez. I guess I would ask them to at least, to put in writing that they're denying the claim so that you could then bring that particular action into court. And so what I would do with the motion for reconsideration, take a couple of pages and lay out the actual facts, not you testifying to it, lay out the actual date and time when things happened and who did them and who didn't do this and lay out the facts to support your actual cause of action, which is a violation of a legal right that caused you harm. And put the supporting facts, and at least some of them, and point out maybe where they are in your complaint. Then if it is again denied, at least you've given the judge everything but the kitchen sink, so that maybe the appellate court will reverse and you'll be able to get this back into the trial court and maybe get remedy there. I got to let you go. I didn't realize we're almost halfway through with the show though. Yeah,
I appreciate any time you give me, sir. And if you want me back, let me know. I mean, it's your show. It's not all about me. And I just want to thank you again for helping whoever you help. I mean, it provides a service to us out here. They're injured and left at the side of the road by our supposed government that is there to protect us.
Well, sure. And I appreciate that. Hey, let me, keep in touch with me off air, and we'll, maybe if you need any help with the motion to dismiss, or if you have any questions with that, shoot me an email. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Joe. Oh, I'm sorry. Joe in Philadelphia. We're going to go back to, he's been on the show before. So he's got a lot of questions for me. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, Mark. That was a long phone call.
Well,
again, you said, I'm not sure what we're supposed to take away from that. There was so much reification and baloney going on there. I understand you're trying to get us to understand how to file paperwork, but that didn't help.
Well,
That's just
no,
my opinion.
I
Whatever.
think one of the takeaways here is to know what know what you're doing. Don't just throw everything out at them, and don't do half-assed kind of research. A writ of error is a very specific thing. It's just like a petition for writ of mandamus is a specific thing, and there are rules that we have to follow to get those things heard. So don't, the takeaway is, for now, one of them, don't go off half-cocked. I get the frustration. I know this has been going on a long time, and I know more than as well as anybody what it's like not to be heard, or have people pay attention to you. And I get that that's frustrating, but we want to make sure that when we are trying to seek a remedy, we're doing it right.
Well, and I'm one for doing a flood or a flurry of motions. Like once we file the motion to dismiss, make all of our efforts on the phone with the prosecutor to get this thing dropped before we even have to set foot in that courtroom. Once we do go into the court and they pretty much violate, all of our due process, then I like to make a flood of motions. And I like the idea of the fact that we're very nervous when we go in there. We're not professionals. There's a prosecutor, a judge, and a witness against us, so it's 3 against 1. And they chop us down pretty fast. So, I mean, we can motion to have the windows open. A motion is just moving the court to do something. So my idea is anything that you want to make sure gets on the record before you get cut off by the judge, file it in a motion. I've had several judges say to me, congratulations, you set a record in my court for the most motions ever filed.
Well,
I can see. That's paperwork. But anyway, that last phone call is just so much baloney.
Well, he did a lot of things wrong. He did a lot of things wrong, and we talked about. I'm trying to point him in the direction of doing, maybe getting a remedy. But you don't want to. I don't want anyone to get the idea that you just file motions willy-nilly. You should have a logical basis for it, and not just filing.
All the due process violations that they're going to do to you. Every one of them, record it, or write it down. I would never suggest. I'm not suggesting anybody record a court hearing, but take notes. Whatever, get the Subaru Trunk Monkey recording edition and let him record it, and make sure that you make all your motions from everything that was violated. They're not willy-nilly motions. Every time one of us goes into the courtroom, we're due process violations up the wazoo.
I just don't want anyone listening who's new getting the idea that just fire off as many motions as possible. It's file your motions as that are appropriate and that are based in fact and law. Due process violations, of course, you motion to dismiss for. But we're up against a break, and as you know, I can't go through the break, so you're going to have to hold on, Tom. So just I'll put you on hold for a moment. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and the Liberty Radio Network, and streaming live on my YouTube channel. Yeah, we want to fire motions. We certainly got to don't be like the prosecution. It's got to be based in reality. But we'll be back with Tom in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Talking with Tom from the Big D. All right, Tom, let's just get to this. I know you said on YouTube there in the chat that there was a couple of issues you wanted to get to. So let's just jump right in with the first one.
Okay. All right. Well, with us, with the no state idea and the non-aggression principle, obviously there would be no borders on the planet. You should be able to go anywhere you want to as a human being anywhere on this planet. But with the situation that we have, the reality that we have a group of people down there at the southern border of the U.S. that want in here. And I mean, what's your opinion of this big flood of these people wanting in? What do you think of this thing? How do we deal with it?
Well, yeah, I think that it's fine. I don't have a problem, and I live in Arizona. I don't know if it could be classified necessarily as a flood. I'm certainly not against people freely moving and traveling and immigration. I've said on the show before, everyone knows that I'm half Sicilian. My grandparents were from Carini, Sicily, and my whole family, my whole maternal side comes from there. And they came at different times for different reasons. I got no problem with that. If people want to move here for better opportunities, I'm all for that. I don't have an issue with that. I know even from a standpoint legally, a lot of them are seeking asylum, and they're doing it according to United States and international law. I don't see the problem. The problem I see is people pulling publicity stunts and costing hundreds of millions of dollars to scare people and to think that there is an invasion going on.
Well, I am an immigrant as you are. My parents, I was born in Germany. My entire family lives in Germany, and my parents came over here. So I have no issue with immigration either. But the system, the way it is, with the people being oppressed even worse than we are, if we opened up those borders, there'd be so many people pouring into this country, it wouldn't even be funny. And they come here expecting, just like those people down there are now saying, well, if you give us $50,000 each, we'll head on back. That's the ideology.
I don't know.
Most of those people, I'm not saying all, but they come here for a handout. They come here because, what are you going to do with them? You going to let them starve on the street?
No, I'm hearing reports and people who are physically in Mexico, reports from people in Mexico that a lot of them have already taken jobs and having, that they're actually working already and may actually stay in Mexico. To say that they're all, look, it's a typical white, I'm not saying it's you, but it's a typical white nationalist, alt-right, Republican scumbag, douchebag move to turn around and say that they're just coming here to get a handout. Republicans can't seem to make up their mind. They're either coming here for handouts or they're taking everybody's jobs. I think especially from people from Central America and Mexico, there's a lot of credibility to their claims to escape violence. The drug gang violence in Mexico and Central America is pretty bad. That's why being a journalist is one of the most dangerous professions in Mexico right now. So I don't buy, there may be some coming here for that reason, but again, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're going to have a few bad apples. It's not the same thing as when you look at the police. It's not a matter of just a few bad apples. It's the whole barrel stinks because of the way they're funded. So
well, here's another problem with it. These people are coming from around the world with many different diseases that we have eliminated here.
Yeah.
And without being able to check them, and we're asking for a boatload of trouble here. It just doesn't work that way. The way things are right now, because the world is divided into these so-called countries, and yes, they're all corrupt. There's maybe worse than this one. You just can't open the borders. Everybody would come here. Come on.
Well, Tom, there's a far worse and more expensive problem with insects coming in. I heard a report about this, that it costs tens of billions of dollars because of bugs that are brought in on pallets for example, from international trade. So whereas immigrants studies are all shown to add to the economy, if you're just looking at it economically, that they are a net benefit. They put a hell of a lot more, especially that's including illegal immigrants. They put more into the economy and don't get nearly the benefits out because they can't. So then when you add in when you put into the mix the damage done by having insects, and so that's why when you go to California, which I do every other week, you have ports of entry where certain types of fruit are not allowed in, and those are safeguards that are there and should be there, and could be there still with a voluntary society, so that because I can tell you from my own experience with documents that I've gotten from Ellis Island on my family, where they came in with cholera or something, or they got something on the way, and so they're not allowed to leave immediately. They can't assimilate with society until after they have gone through a medical clearance. So no one, I think, would argue against that. It's not just open the floodgates and let everyone in. These are issues that definitely need to be addressed. Again, there are certain types of insects. I think wasn't there a frog that was brought to Australia that has wreaked havoc? Someone maybe pull a link up for that for me. Maybe I can do that during a break.
Yeah, we have issues here in the Great Lakes with ships that come in and bring things in and have caused real havoc here. So I understand all that. And, and again, I am for open borders. If we all had a real no state, non-aggression principle, and everyone had to fend for themselves and didn't expect a handout, I believe that there should be no such thing as a border on the planet. But it is a reality right now. And the reality is, if we let everyone in that wanted to come here, I don't know. I don't see it working, brother. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that topic, and that was about all I wanted to discuss today.
I thought you had 3. You didn't have.
No, well, I had. Let's see. No, not really. I had a little funny one here. I'm a gun advocate, okay, and here in Michigan, I want to say it was a U of M or something. One of these colleges has decided to help with the shootings, to give all the students hockey pucks so they can throw the hockey pucks at the shooter. That's how stupid it's getting, But anyway, what's your opinion on guns?
Well, I enjoyed target shooting. I think hunting is abhorrent. I think it's barbaric. I think we're way past the time where we need to hunt, at least in Western society. I have no problem with guns for protection. I think there is a serious problem here in the United States of violence. When you have a society that's based on violence, but then again, so is the society in Australia. I don't agree with banning guns, but they banned and they don't have any more mass shootings. So I'm not saying that guns should be confiscated, but I think that people should re-examine this idea that it's my right as an American, and that being the only reason why to have guns. It's not a perfect world, and I would never want to use physical violence to take someone's gun away unless they were an imminent threat.
Right. Well, my opinion.
Hold on. We're not going to be able to hear you. There's the music. So we'll finish. We'll finish briefly on the next segment. My name is Mark Stevens. Watching me on YouTube right now, but listening on LRN.FM to the No State Project. The guns. I'm not saying the guns should be confiscated, but what do you do when you got a guy down the streets a little unhinged and is stockpiling weapons and just doesn't like brown people, for example, doesn't like Jews? But we'll discuss that when we get back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and the Liberty Radio Network and streaming live on my YouTube channel. And for James Lascalia, if you've never mentioned that, what I'm pointing to right there. I was going to type that out, but I didn't know if you would know what it meant. So, but check that out. It's been there since you sent it. So anyway, bringing Tom back up. I didn't write down. We were talking about the gun issue, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I have an opinion on it.
Okay.
My opinion is that everyone should be able to be armed without a concealed weapons permit or anything like that. An armed society, you go into no gun zones and they have the most murders anywhere. You don't see that when you go to Texas and the people are carrying sidearms right there. Guy owns a party store and he's got a gun on his side. He's not going to get robbed. I mean, that's not he might get robbed, but it might just get shot. It doesn't make any sense. And Stefan Maunu's quote that I just posted in there. Okay, again, there's no such thing as gun control. There is only centralizing gun ownership in the hands of a small political elite and their minions.
All right. I don't want to use the name again, but I don't think that that's actually accurate. You have gun control in the United States, and there is more guns per capita in private ownership than anywhere else in the world. So that quote doesn't make any sense. It's not factually accurate.
Well, what do you mean by we have gun control? Yeah, we're required to register handguns, now long guns as well when you buy them. What do you mean by we have gun control?
There are regulations about the sale and possession of guns.
Okay.
There is gun.
I understand
control.
that, and I don't.
There is gun control. So the quote is not accurate.
Well, that quote, I read only the bottom section of that quote because I didn't want to read the whole thing. But I'll read the whole thing if you like, because it ties together with what you're saying.
No.
Okay, I won't. All right, it's fine. But the bottom line is
any material from that site on my show.
Okay, whatever. You brought up Australia and the fact that they can't have guns. And you go talk to people from Australia and communicate with people from Australia, and they'll tell you, I mean, come on, Mark. The first thing that a dictator does is disarm the people. It's just, I don't understand that. And for if you want no state and no rulers, how exactly will you take the guns away from everybody?
I didn't say about confiscating guns. I wasn't talking about that. I was giving it, when I mentioned that, it's a historical record that in the last 20 years since they've done that. Not that I agree with gun confiscation. I already made that clear.
Okay.
How many mass shootings have they had in Australia since they did that? Not that there's no murders. No one's saying it's going to eliminate murders, but how many mass shootings have they had?
I don't know. Probably none.
None. Not a single one. So I'm not saying that I agree with gun confiscation, okay? But if you remember John Oliver doing that interview with one of those Australian or one of those gun rights politicians, whoop-de-doo. That was his. Okay, so they've had no mass shootings since they did that. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah. The thing is, when they did that, there was a result that cannot be argued with. Yes, there are still murders. Absolutely. But they don't have a regular series of mass shootings like you have here in the United States. The United States is I don't know the records, and I'm not going to say it's the most. In the United States, mass shootings where people walk into a school or a concert or something like that happen on a regular basis. It happens all the time. I can't even remember how many shootings there have been just in the last 5 years because it's so often. But they don't have that in Australia.
So you're blaming the guns?
No, I'm blaming easy access to guns. More
Well,
people are
I
killed in
think
their
it's
home.
more of a
people-
mental issue. I mean, we have a unique
be.
country here, and unique problems, and a unique culture. I think that's the issue.
Well, I said it's a society that is based primarily on violence, where it's normalized. I get that, but how many times have you heard where it happens so often, where a kid gets a gun and shoots the father or shoots the brother? You know, and also with the statistics, it's bad where some places where they put suicides in, where the gun was easy to get to, somebody with a mental health issue, but that's just something that's never really addressed. Instead of, but you can't argue. Look, my point was that I thought the quote was ridiculous on its face. I don't want to get into it. I've already explained why, and that the idea that not that I agree with it, but you can't argue with the result. They banned the guns. I don't agree with that, but the result is they don't have mass shootings anymore.
Well, I'd rather take the chance on the mass shootings than not having any weapons to protect myself from the government that we have. I'm sorry.
Well, I see
it's getting worse and worse, and you see it.
Yeah,
and you want to.
No,
okay,
I didn't say. I said I'm against gun confiscation. I already told you that. Should it be as easy to get a machine gun? Should it be easy for someone to stockpile thousands and thousands of rounds in their, in their garage? I'm all for having a shotgun or two or three or even four to protect my home, because a shotgun is a lot better for home defense if someone's breaking in the middle of the night than an M16. Plus, the M16 is a piece of crap. But we don't have enough time to argue that. I'm not saying I'm for gun confiscation and that I'm for a centralized government type to do something like that. I'm just saying it's not a valid argument to say that there aren't results in a place like Australia where they did the ban the guns. I don't, so it just.
All right, well, let me ask you this. If we lived in the utopia, I don't want to use that word, but okay, if we lived in a no state, there was no government, no state, and I decided to manufacture weapons and sell them to people, if there was no government, how would you stop me from doing that?
I'm not against somebody selling weapons. What I'm against, what I don't want to see is where it's so easy to get. And I think it's more of a marketing where a majority of the people where, it is frowned upon. It's not commonly accepted to make weapons easily available to some schmuck around the corner from me, where he could fire an automatic for 15, 20, 30 minutes or a half hour if he wanted and kill as many people as he wanted to. What, is some guy with a shotgun going to actually be able to stop him? Before how many people did?
Well, Mark, I understand where you're coming from, but what I'm asking specifically, if there were no government and we were all responsible for ourselves, and I decided to make guns and sell them to whomever wanted to purchase them, how would you regulate that or stop that without a government?
Well, first, it's not everyone's for themselves. I think in a voluntary society, like I mentioned, we're still going to have services, and I think we're going to have things that are commonly administered for each community, like prisons. But everything's going to be, it should be transparent and not the way it is now. So I believe that there still would be regulations. It's just not at the barrel of a gun, where certain things are not commonly accepted. Look, we don't accept that, killing people aggressively, using aggression. It's not commonly accepted. And I would like to think that as we evolve as a people socially, that it's not going to be commonly accepted that, Jim Bob down the street has an arsenal. It's just.
Well, how would you regulate that? You used the word regulate just now. How who would regulate these things, and how would they do it without force?
Well, that's why I said it's more of something where the society doesn't accept it. It's frowned upon. So what do you do to stop it? I don't think you can use necessarily physical force unless there's an imminent threat. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the guy who can sit there and give you and try to speak authoritatively for 7 hours at a time as if I know every single in and out about society and how things are going to function. I'm just not that guy. And I'm up against the break, so just hold on. We'll finish on the other side. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and streaming on my YouTube channel. We'll be back with your calls in just a few moments. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. We're in the third of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio here already, and running out of time fast. I know we got a full boat of calls, and I know some people are been very patient and are going to court. So, Tom, we're going to have to finish this on another day. But just real quick, I imagine that maybe with kind of like with neighborhoods, you can have HOA type of situations where it's just not something that's accepted that you stockpile weapons. And if we're in a voluntary society without a government, one of the key arguments for stockpiling weapons is to overthrow a government is gone because there's no government to overthrow. We don't have a government. So it is a very complex issue, and it's not something that I have an answer to, an ironclad answer. I'm not the anarchist who claims to know literally everything about every subject under the sun. And
well, if I can just make one quick comment then before you let me go.
Sure.
When I have these discussions with people, and I've worked with ex-cops, okay, when I have these discussions about, with no government there to force, because that's what it's going to take to limit someone that's making weapons that you don't want them selling to somebody that you don't want them to have. How is that done without a government? It's not possible.
Well,
and if you can't answer that, well, then we're in a corner, brother. I have these conversations with Dad all the time, and he says that I'm an idiot because it doesn't work.
No, because one of the things you could do is, again, it could be a banking something with the banks. If the number of people in the community don't, want to have that because they'll still want to have places operate as corporations. It could be something like you can't do any banking if you're selling those types of weapons, or you still have to use the roads. You still have to get product. You still have to. You still have to be able to get the tools. You still have to get the raw materials to make that. So it could be some kind of economic, embargo or a boycott, things like that to discourage someone from doing something like that, where you're not using aggression to be able to do this. So that is something I think we could throw in the mix, where you're consistent with the non-aggression principle. There has to be a change in people's perceptions on what's right and what's wrong. Is it right to have somebody in their basement or whatnot stockpiling hundreds of weapons and hundreds of thousands of rounds? For what particular purpose?
Well, did you read my copy? You probably didn't. You were on break going wherever. Hey, listen, the first currency that there's going to be when the paper actually becomes paper again is going to be bullets. People are going to need to, one, defend themselves, and two, possibly go hunting. So bullets are gold and silver will eventually be reigning again. But the bottom line is the first currency is going to be bullets. So maybe stockpiling some bullets of all calibers might not be such a bad idea.
Again, I'm not giving. I don't have definitive answers. I have suggestions based on a non-aggression principle and do no harm to help guide things in a better way. But it's an extremely complex issue, and it's not something that has this is what the answer is. And just because we
said though, do no harm is fine, but it doesn't mean pacifism. It doesn't mean that when someone wants to hurt you and your family, you just go, "Oh, put my hands up, I'm sorry." And you're going to need bullets, and you're going to need guns when the shit hits the fan, and it's coming, brother. If you're not paying attention to what's going on this planet right now, it's coming. So.
But that's a different
we'll agree to disagree, I guess, and go ahead, take your next caller, brother. Talk to you later.
Necessarily disagreeing with, but again, I think we're in agreement with most of it. I just think it's a societal where people have to change. The idea that you need to have a stockpile of weapons to defeat some government which has nuclear weapons, I think is pretty outdated. I think the idea that we have to be armed to the teeth. No, you're saying that when you go to a gun show, everyone's armed, and that's what you don't want. But the thing is, people are not going to want, the majority of people, I think, are not going to want to walk around in everyday life and be armed. You're not, to envision a 100% armed society at all times is stupid. You're not going to.
I do. The Wild West was like that.
No,
That's
it
why it
wasn't.
wasn't so wild.
No, it
People
wasn't.
they were all armed.
Oh, no, that's not. That is the idea that every single person was armed 100% of the time in the West is not true. There were places where you had to, you couldn't walk around in some cities with a firearm. There were still regulations there. So the idea of the Wild West is largely a myth that everybody was armed 100% of the 100% of the population armed 100% of the time. Not even remotely true. That is just not true.
There you go again. Regulations. Some cities had no firearms, and how did that happen? And who regulated it? And who enforced it?
But,
bottom line is, to have regulations, you have to have enforcers, and that means aggression.
Yeah. Well, again, we got to get on a show where I can blow through the commercials. I don't think we're disagreeing on much, if anything here, but we'll have to continue the conversation on another show.
All right, take it easy, brother.
Appreciate the call, Tom and the Big D. Hey, we agree. The non-aggression principle is, do no harm. What do we do? There has to be a societal change. Why do you, it comes down. Why do you say, why do you need to I don't feel comfortable. And I would like it would if it was part of the HOA or some of the one of the agreements when in the neighborhood. I don't want somebody stockpiling weapons that can, automatic weapons. I mean, my gosh, do you really want more people in San Bernardino, California to have automatic weapons? Anyway. We got Sebastian from Los Angeles who could probably tell us from firsthand experience that there's a lot of people in Los Angeles that shouldn't have a gun.
Absolutely, Mark.
I couldn't even imagine going to San Bernardino and having every single person armed. And there's no way that just because everyone knows that everyone else is armed, that's going to stop gunfights. Because even what Tom was saying, if the majority of people were armed in Tombstone, that didn't stop gunfights. That didn't stop people from being killed. That didn't stop bank robbers. I mean, bank robbers.
Imagine how road rage would be.
Yeah, road rage. And the thing is, the fact that Wells Fargo was armed to the teeth didn't stop people from robbing them. So it's such a complex social issue. There is no black and white to this. And I just don't want to hear some pseudo anarchist philosopher, try to make it such a black and white issue. And it's not. Banks are armed to the teeth. They're still robberies. So that punches a hole in that argument. It's just more complex than I think some people want to make, admit to. Anyway.
I think some people just want to have all the answers before they get to the voluntary society because they're afraid of what might come. But, they'll realize that the violence probably won't be as bad without the violence of the state, which causes a lot of the violence and the poverty.
I have to agree that the majority of the violence is caused by government. I think that because government violence is normalized, and certainly poverty, when you have crony capitalism, corporatism, certainly helps drive poverty. And of course, government is just as much, if not more, to blame for the poverty, of course.
Totally. So I have a case coming up, a red light traffic ticket.
Okay.
And I have a trial in a couple of weeks. I was already railroaded at arraignment. I had the unsigned plea. The judge pled not guilty, objected, saying it doesn't represent me. He said, "Oh, we're done." And then the bailiff shooed me away. And I go, "I'm being threatened with violence. I'm leaving." I said that in front of everybody. And the
hold on a second. I'm up against the break, and I can't blow through that. So just hold tight. We'll be back here on the No State Project in just a few moments. The gun violence and violence in general, very, very complicated issue. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray, and not every argument is going to be sufficient for every situation. And that's the way life is. It's not that easy, but we'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, Mark.
I did it again. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I unmuted you, but I didn't unmute myself. So
Thanks. Captain Justice in Southern California.
Yeah. So when he entered the plea of not guilty and you objected, I think it would have been better and more effective if you had said, "Objection, are you under the impression I'm refusing to plea?"
Oh, nice.
Because that's the only time they can enter a plea for you. And it's not, and also if they can't ascertain, and obviously if you're intending on pleading guilty, that negates that. So did you have was there any discussion on the demur?
The problem with this arraignment is that I didn't file everything then because I wanted to catch them by surprise, and also I was under the impression that I could just say. Then I was stupid because that puts the burden on me. So then I switched back to the unsigned plea, and I asked about jurisdiction. He said, "We have jurisdiction." I'm like, "Are you arguing facts not in evidence?" And that's when they railroaded me. So after the arraignment, now I sent in everything. I sent the demur. So I think I'll start at the trial and say I have these motions on the table.
Okay, so let me just address this about the element of surprise. We don't need the element of surprise, and it kind of works against you in a situation, and sometimes because the prosecution has to have an opportunity to respond. We don't need the element of surprise because the prosecution doesn't have the evidence. They can't prove their claim. All they can do is argue that they don't have to, or strawman, like I mentioned in the first segment. So for you and anyone else, we don't need an element of surprise. We don't need that. The element of surprise may be necessary. I don't know. I can't even think about that now. So we don't need it. So he pled not guilty for you. They rushed you out of there. Do you have a pretrial date? Damn it. I think we got him back.
I'm back.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know how much you missed, but I was asking if they've set a pretrial date for you.
No, they didn't set anything. They didn't respond to any of my motions. So I just have a trial date that's on the 27th, a couple of days after Christmas.
Wow, that sucks. Well, and you filed the demur and you've got the discovery request filed?
Yeah, demur, Brady request, motion to strike involuntary uninformed plea, motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct.
Okay, well, they're probably going to hear that on the date of the 27th, so you should be doing some role playing for that. Contact me, on Skype at FrankRizzo3 can help out with that. We didn't do it this week because no one contacted me on Skype, and I don't think I want to use the Discord anymore because there's a number of people in there I don't want to contact. I don't want to participate with. So I'm going to just do it on Skype. So you have to contact me at FrankRizzo3 on Thursday, and then we can get that set up. I may even start, if I'm going to do it that way, I may even start broadcasting it again and taking questions on the YouTube channel there.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the cop, I did reconnaissance on other trials, and the cop that signs off on the notice didn't show up. So it was a different cop. Can I impeach him based on that? Or are they just like, hey, they're all just looking at video. So they all just have, knowledge of the video, and that's their firsthand knowledge or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So it's a photo radar ticket?
Yeah.
And it's considered criminal?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, I would still push that they don't have personal knowledge because they're still making claims. Because look, does the video prove that the laws apply to you?
Right.
Right. So it doesn't. So is it? So it's not relevant. You can't get to because the video has to be relevant to proving that the laws apply and you violated them. And if they can't prove the first part, then the video is not relevant. So nothing in the video is proving the most relevant part. So you could still argue that, and I would still move for the personal knowledge. They still have to have personal knowledge that the laws apply and you violated them. The video doesn't come into play yet, and you can even ask him. Who was ever there to testify. Does this video prove that the laws apply to me? You know.
So I object right at the beginning when they call the cop up and say this is a Brady request violation. I asked if he had expertise and firsthand knowledge of jurisdiction over me, and you guys didn't answer that, and he doesn't appear to.
Yeah, where's the proof? Because 702 in California is the rule under the rules of evidence. No witness may testify unless proof is introduced to show that they have personal knowledge of the matters they're testifying to. And yeah, I would call that a Brady violation if they know the witness and they are responsible to know if that their witnesses are qualified. And then if they're not qualified, that's impeachment material. They have to give that to you on the Brady. So yeah, I would definitely object to them getting on the stand. And I would want to argue my motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct before they put the witness on the stand. Before they,
Yes.
Before they're going to do the trial. We can't start the trial because there's pretrial motion still pending.
What if they say, well, I can't say anything about the prosecutorial misconduct because I wasn't there and I didn't hear what the judge did to you, kind of thing. Ex parte, that kind of crap.
Say that again.
Well, I mean, I think my response, if the judge goes like, well, I don't know what happened at your arraignment, so I can't say if it was prosecutorial misconduct or not, that kind of thing. Or it's the judge prosecuting from the bench.
No, well,
but I think I would just go ahead. Sorry.
Well, because you're able to show in the record, sir. You can just go based on the record before you. It's all we need to show that the prosecutor is arguing without evidence. There's nothing in the record that would prove their claim that the laws apply just because I'm physically in California. There's nothing in the record.
Right.
Even if there were 100 judges before you, the record is still the record. It doesn't matter. The record that the prosecution has submitted, it's not necessarily relevant to which judge was there before. Now, the judge could have thrown certain things out, and we don't know, but generally in something like this, it's not a very sophisticated case. What the prosecution has presented is still a part of the record. We'll have to finish in the next
Okay, thanks,
segment.
Mark.
All right. Well, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're up against the break, so I got to let you go. All right. Let me keep in touch with me and do some role playing on Skype at Frank Rizzo 3. My name is Mark Stevens, listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We'll be back with your calls in just a few moments, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No Stay Project. I thought I gave some answers here, Tom. Listen to the show again. We're not going to give the number out because we're in the last few segments of the show, so I want to make sure we get enough time to he's been on the show before. We have Travis in Pennsylvania. Well, I think it was Pennsylvania. Well, Travis, welcome back to the show. Are you in Pennsylvania or Virginia? Travis? Oh, I know you've been patient, but my gosh, we got you. Travis. Well, I can hear him. All right, we're going to mute him back up. Yeah, Travis, just getting, I don't know, white noise, some buzzing, beeping. But if you want to join me here on the show, we got a couple segments left. It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. And you can also Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3, but instant message me so we'll get you up on a break. Yeah, and we're saying this. Yeah, I'll have to do my own Discord thing. If we're going to use this Discord, it's probably better to do the role playing than Skype. We can mute people out. With Skype, it could just be everybody talking at once, which did not work out too well. But we need to do the role playing. I still want to be able to do that. And this way, if I control it, I don't have to see other people in there and see their comments that I don't, want to. I don't want to associate with. No, I don't vote. I think I voted once about 25 years ago. Don't vote. I don't vote. I wanted to address something here while we're waiting to see if we can get Travis. Somebody had posted much earlier, and I wrote it down, and it's yeah, I know I got to do the BitChute thing. One thing at a time. It really bothers me about, when I see things like this. Did I advocate voting? I said, if at the local level, if someone like Ian Freeman is running, yeah, I think it would be, to campaign and throw support and try to get someone like Ian Freeman at the local level, which I think it's possible for someone like us to get elected and have an impact on policy. Yeah. At the federal level, about Fongool to that, I don't think there's any chance there. It's just too controlled. But if somebody has an argument where, to a logical argument to not support someone like Ian or Derek J, who for a local office where they could have an impact on policy, I 218-632-9399 is the number, and let me hear what it is. Yeah, but you're advocating violence. We're not advocating violence. It's self-defense to put someone, an anarchist in. We're talking about somebody like Ian who's got a proven track record, who is willing to go to jail on principle. He has done it more than once. So in that situation, yeah. And what if there is something like legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana? You shouldn't vote for that? Yeah. I would, yeah. So there's I get the argument. But I think it's a matter of self-defense. I mean, even Spooner said, wrote in No Treason, the Constitution, no authority. Voting is an act of self-defense. So if you have a local ordinance that would reduce violence, or if you voted against it and defeated it, there would be less violence and less harm, then I think that that's logically and ethically consistent. It's an act of self-defense. Oh, yeah. Yeah. we'll try to get them back. So. Yeah, I know somebody just, foreign, Ian may not have gotten much of the vote, but, that's why I'm talking about. Anyway, let me get to, let me get to this, what somebody had mentioned. Government, this is a very old claim, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Government cannot act on living, breathing people. This is why, it goes hand in hand. Of course, it's part of the name in all caps. This trash that, and it goes back to at least 30 years when somebody falsified a Supreme Court ruling. They just fabricated it that because governments are artificial entities, they can only act on other artificial entities. So they have to trick you into accepting the name in all caps so that they can have jurisdiction and act on you. And that is just ridiculous. It was a fabricated, and I've shown here on the show, it was a fabricated ruling, just like what Carl Gramsci would do. Preamble citizens are not subject to legislative enactments. He made it up. He lied. It doesn't exist in a court case. And it's still being perpetrated today. The same stupid thing. Governments are men and women. And the idea that a government is created where they're punishing murder and they can't act on living people, it's so stupid. And that these silly arguments are still being parroted today. There's absolutely no merit to that whatsoever. Stick to the facts. Start with facts that you can agree that that there's no reasonable dispute to the facts, like with judicial notice, that there's no reasonable, rational dispute to the facts. That's why I try to make it simple. They are just men and women forcing us to pay them. There's no evidence that there are citizens, and I've gone through this so many times. The whole thing collapses. I don't know. If you vote and Ian doesn't win, you've given legitimacy to a system. You just don't like the outcome, but it's legitimate, so you agree with the process. If you're doing it out of self-defense, are you giving legitimacy? If your only act is, if your intention on doing it is literally self-defense, are you giving legitimacy to the process? You want to put someone like Ian in as an act of self-defense so that the policy can be changed, so that the people carrying out that policy are not going to hurt you. I mean, so if you just look at someone who, an undercover cop who infiltrates, the mafia and gets is the police officer giving legitimacy to the mafia? I don't know if it's really that cut and dry. Again, I see it as an act of self-defense, so I don't think you're necessarily legitimizing it. Well, pretty much every vote is self-defense. All right, I think we've got Travis back, so we'll be back here with his call in the last segment here on the No State Project. So don't go away. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the No State Project. We're in the last segment here. Fairly contentious show, which is fine. I'm not going to give out the number, but again, don't Skype me. Don't Skype call me during. You have to instant message me first, and I'll let you know if we can bring you up. But we got Travis back. Travis, welcome.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, there he is. Okay, I started hearing a lot of the same background noise before, so I thought, okay, so what's going on? Did you have court this week? Travis. Oh, I guess it's the cell phone. We're not going to make it. So we'll mute him up. Somebody had made a claim, and I know the whole thing with Trump, people saying he's not a politician. And so, someone like Derek J was saying, well, he's not a politician. Trump people said, well, he's not a politician. There's a huge world of difference between Donald Trump and someone like Derek J. Derek J is willing to go to jail for his principle, which is do no harm, non-aggression. He's gone to jail. And Donald Trump is a proven piece of garbage. He has lied with the ease of some of the world's greatest narcissists. He has publicly stated how he's attracted, to his own daughter. There are some really creepy pictures of him with her. He's actually said these things. He is a despicable human being. All politicians tend to be despicable, but Trump, even before, he even bragged about buying off politicians. All this stuff was publicly done. People voted for him just to burn the libs. Where you have Christians, so-called Christians, who vote for him because he claims to be against abortion, and I think it's actually come out that maybe he has paid, but he a so-called Christian who's cheated on every one of his wives, publicly humiliating these women. He talked about grabbing them by the crotch because you're famous, you can do whatever you want. You cannot put Donald Trump in the same category as someone like Derek J, a man who has a proven record of sticking to his principles. It's apples and oranges. Donald Trump is proven every single day. Every day there's more and more and more stuff coming out about what a vile, despicable human being he is. Derek J went to jail for his principles. He has proven he's a stand-up guy. No one's saying he's perfect, but he's established a record, which is the polar opposite of someone like Donald Trump. Lied and lies and lie. He lies with such ease. That's why you go on Reddit that you want to accommodate the narcissist prayer. I didn't do it. If I did it, it's not that bad. And if it was that bad, you deserved it. What about him? What about them? What about, holy crap, he's brought whataboutism, onto a different level. We cannot compare those two. Yeah. I get sick of all the Trump stuff too, but I guess it's unfortunate. I guess it came up because somebody meant I mentioned he wasn't a Derek J or Ian Freeman are not politicians, but yeah, it just Jamal Khashoggi, one of many journalists that have been murdered, but this one, they have actual video, at least audio. They know and what does someone like Trump do? Money, lying about the amount of money to Saudi Arabia. Because it's all about money. Someone like Eric J. has actual principles. Actual principles. That's a very rare thing. Very rare thing. You don't see that too often. And you certainly don't get that from most politicians. Let's see if we can get Travis back. Travis, you with us now?
Keep your fingers crossed. Cross your fingers.
All right.
Are your fingers crossed?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my motion to dismiss and my Brady request were denied, and so my trial for January 8th still stands. So I'm just going to file for a reconsideration, and see where that goes for that. Is there anything else you would recommend for that? I have another situation I could bring up.
Well, we only have 3 minutes left, and I can't go over today. Did you file a motion?
Yeah.
Did you file a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct?
Not yet.
Oh, I would.
Oh no. Well, no. I filled out. Well, no, hold on. I filled out all of the paperwork the way that you have it in your package. All I did was put in my information. So everything that's in your motion to dismiss was what I submitted.
Okay, but did you also file? Because I don't include with the original email, package, the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct. So I have the motion in limine.
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay, so email me, and I will get you the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct. Now, obviously, you have to take the Castillo stuff out. You have to put your facts in there to support that the prosecution hasn't responded to the Brady request, hasn't that the record's devoid of any evidence to support their claim, and that they are arguing without evidence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to bring up the next one, I can maybe try on Wednesday. But
well, I got
could be
2 minutes. What is it? Is it another traffic case?
Okay. Yeah. So I've got an outstanding suspension on my license until I post the fines until the trial happens. So they want me to post the fines, and then if I win in the trial, they'll give me my money back.
And this is
so I haven't done anything. So I'm driving on a suspended license.
Well, kudos to you for that. Just make sure you don't get, you avoid the.
I know.
I did that for a very long time. It's been a long time. So, and I spent a lot of time on those roads going back.
Is there any way of getting around it other than posting the fines? I mean, because
you can file.
He won't see me.
Waive it. You can file a motion to waive it because the record is devoid of any evidence of jurisdiction.
I already asked him to. Right. I didn't form it that way. I put it in myself. I'm just going to kind of do the form the best I can. And I said, look, I'm willing to come in and do a trial, but can you at least take the suspension off? And he's like, yeah, you can pay the fine. You can post the fine. And then if you win, then we'll give you your money back. That's what the answer was.
Oh, did you formally file to waive it?
Yeah, I didn't put it that way. I called. Yeah, I said, can you suspend the suspension?
Just file a very short one-page motion to waive the requirement in the interest of justice, because there's absolutely no evidence of jurisdiction to even require it. The prosecution hasn't met their burden to even require it. So give that a shot.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the best I can do right now because I'm waiting. The music's going to start. We're going to get the bumper, so we're we're at the end of the show. But for the January 8th one, I think it would be wise to contact me and do some role playing. So
yeah, most definitely.
Okay, yeah, and for those listening, if you want to do that and you just want to listen and ask questions, Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3, and we try to do that every Thursday. From 4 to 5 Mountain Standard Time. So it's the same time as the Wednesday show, but it's on Thursday. So,
all right.
Have you done any?
Shout out to supposedly Shelley.
Okay. Well, have you done any role playing yet?
I have. Yeah, I've called in a couple of times.
Okay. That's good. All right. Well, I appreciate the call, and we're about out of time. Yep. There it goes. You contact me off air and email me, and I'll get you the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct. Okay. All right. Well, I guess he dropped off. I will drop off also. I wish I had audio. All we're going to have is this broadcast, so I won't be pulling it down because of a tech issue. But appreciate everyone's calls, and we'll be live on Wednesday, I believe. So till then, salud.